G'day, Smutty Legends, and welcome back. Today we're up to chapter 4, so we're back with Tobias. So I'm really sorry I've been away for so long, but Christmas really got to me, and it's been busy. So let's just crack straight back in and pick up where we left off. If you recall, we are all sitting at the table eating pizza. So and Tobias has just sat down next to Ryth. So without further ado, here we go. She had no idea. None at all. I watched her eat with her downcast gaze, staring at that ugly fucking birthmark on her cheek, until Nick kicked me under the table. I shot the bastard a glare as he gave a small shake of his head. She was just a kid, right? I glanced at those perky little tits. No, not a kid. My cock grew hard as my anger grew. Hate I understood, but seeing her like this, so damn small and meek, taking tiny bites of her pizza like she was a goddamn mouse, incited something dangerous inside me. Squeak, squeak, little thing. Tobias. The sound of my name on her lips made me jerk. I lifted my gaze to the woman who sat next to Dad. Yeah? I was just asking if you're enjoying Clarence's business major. Right? She asked like it was everyday conversation. I'm not actually, I answered. Dropped out about 2 months ago. What? Dad's head shot up, a smear of cheese grease on his lips as he scowled. Since when did you make that decision? When I decided the last days I had with my mother were more important. Conversation halted. Caleb and Nick froze, then slowly looking from me to Dad as the bastard had the gall to blanch, then swallowed hard. You know, I continued, holding his gaze, before she died. Tobe, Nick started. Suddenly, I'm not feeling fucking hungry. I shoved up from the table and turned away, catching that little bitch's gaze as I left. But it wasn't a sick smear of sympathy I saw in her eyes. No, it was something more like sadness. Like she almost understood my pain, which is a damn lie. She doesn't know a goddamn thing about me. I strode from the dining room table, leaving a void behind me. I sucked the joy from Dad's moment and the blossoming friendship that fucking woman wanted to have with us, then took the stairs two at a time, leaving them behind. I'm sorry about that, Dad murmured, his words barely reaching me. There's no need, El Castlemaine answered. None at all. I slammed my boots against the stairs until I reached my floor, glancing at her room. Her fucking room. I glanced over my shoulder and headed towards it, throwing open the door. Christ, it even smelt different. Gone was the biting scent of hospital antiseptic and the faint smell of death I couldn't fucking shake, no matter how deeply I exhaled. It smelled like vanilla. Ugh, fucking vanilla. I glanced at the small bottle of perfume on the dresser. Pure. The gold label stated. I swallowed hard as the heat raced to my cock. Pure? Fuck, I wanted to smell it. Wanted to search her bed for those panties and spray that shit on them, too. I stepped closer, pouring through the mess of her clothes, the ones she'd torn the tags from, and found her underwear hidden under ripped black jeans. I crossed the room, grabbed the perfume bottle, and lifted it to my nose. Anger drove me to pump the mist across her underwear before placing the bottle back. I balled the panties in my hand, then shoved them into my pocket before striding from the room. The door closed quietly behind me, leaving the heady scent of the perfume behind. I didn't know why I had done it. Why I hated her. Her white cotton fucking panties and the bottle of Pure burning in my mind. But I took them. Like she'd taken from me. Get the fuck out of my house, I muttered as I stepped inside my room and closed the door. Darkness swallowed me. The blackout blinds were drawn. The walls were painted dark steel grey. I didn't want light in my world. I pulled the panties free. I didn't want women, all vanilla, and I sure as hell didn't want her. I closed my eyes and lifted them, inhaling deeply. The scent invaded me. In my head, I saw her naked, those tight little peaks of her breasts puckered tight. I swallowed as I grew hard. I wanted to lick them, wanted to open her legs and see how pure she really was. She couldn't be too pure. No 18-year-old stayed a virgin for long. But that fucking ugly mark on her cheek said she probably was. I bet it drove it to run and hide any time a guy looked her way. I bet because of it she'd never been kissed or touched. Fuck me. I reached down, unzipped my jeans and took out my cock. An ache pulsed deep as I took myself in my hand and looked down. The head was red, flushed and hungry. I hadn't been this hard in forever. I squeezed my fist and the pressure and pressed the white cotton into my face. And in my head, she squirmed under my hold. You a fucking mouse, I roared at her. In my fantasy, those little tits bounced and trembled as she bucked her hips under me. Her dusty pink nipples grew even tighter as she fought. You a fucking little mouse in my goddamn house, bitch. Get off me, she screamed, those washed out grey eyes glaring into mine. Sadness and fucking desperation. That's what I'd seen downstairs. That's how she'd fucking looked at me, like she gave a shit, like she fucking cared. I gave a low, harsh grunt coming hard in my fucking hand. My cock twitched, the vein underneath pulsing as I drew in a deep gasp and croaked. What the fuck was that? I lowered her panties as a tremor of disgust rolled through me. What the fuck was I doing? I shoved my cock back into my jeans and crossed the room, tossing her panties onto the bed before grabbing some Kleenex. This wasn't right. She's just a kid. I turned to my desk, yanked my headset on and opened up a game, trying to force my attention to anything else. But my gaze drifted to the white cotton ball now resting against my pillow. The scent lingered, filling me, taking up space that the bitter scent of antiseptic had occupied before. I didn't know which was worse. A knock came at my door before it opened. I tugged my headset down as Kaylin walked in, grabbing a plate of pizza and garlic bread. Figured you'd get hungry sometime. Thanks. I stared at the screen, not even remembering what the game was. He closed the door and placed the plate on the desk in front of me and took a seat at the end of my bed. Why the fuck are they here? Dunno. Acting like I didn't care. Dad's actually smiling. I winced at the words. I haven't seen him smile in, and I cut him a glare, my pulse pounding in my head. Say it. Say the words and I'll punch you in the fucking mouth. But Caleb flinched, as though he actually realised what he was saying. Anyway, food fucker, and give Dad a break, yeah. He's just been a good guy, a good friend, nothing more. I glanced back to my game. Since when was he ever a good guy? That was the past, T. Don't you think it's time you moved on? It wasn't you that he fed to the dogs, though, was it? I muttered. He stepped closer, kicking the bottom of my chair. You were the stupid fuck who went after Lazarus Rossi, so let's just leave it at that, okay? Anger roared through me, searing just as hot in the minute as it had a year ago. He fucking trashed my car, then sent his goons to pay me a visit at school. What the fuck was I supposed to do? Caleb just shook his head. You made a move on his woman, man. I think his response was justified, don't you? It wasn't even his woman. He didn't love her. He barely even looked at her. She was fair game. You didn't want her either, T. You were only an asshole whose mum had just been diagnosed with cancer. Look, you were acting out. I get that. All I'm saying is, how about we let bygones be bygones? Dad's doing a good thing here, helping these people out by giving them a place and figuring a way to get that girl's dad out of jail. My lips curled. I stared at my brother as though he was a stranger, because in that moment he might as well have been. He didn't see Dad like I did, didn't see that this wasn't him being a good guy, because men like my father didn't fucking change. He was a shark feeding in the water, moving from one target to the next, always hungry and always fucking cold. Thanks for the pizza, I muttered and turned my back to the game. I turned back to my game. I saw the way you looked at her, Caleb murmured, carefully, not taking the goddamn hint. His gaze went to the other end of the bed, and I knew the moment he saw her white cotton panties. He scowled for a second until he realised who they were, but he never said a word. He just kept talking, and Nick did as well. Don't mess with her, Tobias. She's sweet. The corner of my lips twitched. Sweet? I mean it. Stay away from her and check your goddamn attitude. Get the fuck out, Caleb, I growled and glared back at the TV. He stayed there for a second longer, then left. I wanted to throw that fucking plate after him. Wanted to hit Dad and that little bitch downstairs too, just to prove a point. Instead, I strode towards the door, grabbed my keys off the dresser as I went, and slammed the door behind me. Fuck me. Fuck her. And fuck the Rossies. I strode down the stairs and through the front door, my face burning as I left them all behind. No doubt Dad would be making some bullshit excuse. Remember me. Mum's words resounded as I pressed the remote, then climbed into my car. I was backing out of the driveway before I knew it, braking the moment I was out on the street, then shoved the Jeep into gear before punching the accelerator. The tyres squealed before they caught and I shot forward. I drove the same damn streets I've been driving for weeks now, ever since Caleb and Nick moved back home for a while. They came under the pretense of being together as a family, but the truth was, we felt more disconnected than ever before. They didn't bring me food, not before today. They barely even spoke to me, content with sitting in their rooms and having everything done for them. None of them spoke to me about Mum, and they sure as hell didn't go near that room. Stay away from her. Caleb's warning rang in my head as headlights burned through the night. Headlights flared behind me, making me clench my fists around the steering wheel and head towards the city. And as always, my thoughts turned to her. That ache filled my chest like it was my heart. I couldn't breathe. I yanked the wheel and braked, pulling over. My pulse thundered until it was all I could hear. I leaned over the fucking wheel and closed my eyes while I shook and shuddered. What the fuck was wrong with me? I was coming apart, becoming the failure Dad always knew I was. Remember me, she whispered as that ache in my chest bored into a fist and rammed into the back of my throat. Remember. I wrenched my eyes open, let out a wounded fucking moan and forced that agony back down into the pit inside me where it belonged. I would not let it out. I would not let them see me like this. I sucked in hard breaths until that wave passed, then glanced into the side mirror and pulled back out. I drove through the streets, making my way to the lookout, high above the city, and parked. Bright lights glittered and sparkled like jewels below me. I tried to think about something other than that churning abyss of grief inside me, and slowly my thoughts turned to her. The kid who wasn't a kid, Ryth Castlemaine. I pulled up my phone and searched her name. The usual social media, Facebook, TikTok, Insta. All that hadn't been touched in months. I searched her profiles and went through her photos. Too trusting, aren't you, Ryth? Her photos were all there for anyone to see. In an instant, the memory of her panties came roaring back to me, and that fucking scent. Pure, right? I hated the way I thought about her. I wasn't like this. I wasn't so fucking cruel around other women. I stopped on an image of her, one where she was at the beach with her parents. A video. I hit play and listened to her laugh. We come to the beach and here I am, left all alone. Where the hell are my parents? I leaned forward, watching the smile falter on her face. The camera panned outwards, catching the two figures further along the beach. The way they faced each other, hands flailing in the air. It wasn't hard to realize what was happening. They were arguing. She pulled the camera away. Looks like they're busy, she breathed, her words panicky and rushed. But yeah, guys, this is Castlemaine Beach, named after my father's family. Pretty cool, huh? Cool, I murmured as the video ended, freezing on her face in the frame. That ugly fucking birthmark front and center in the camera's view. I bet she was bullied at school for that. Bet all the kids made fun of her. Something inside me clenched with the thought. My breath deepened and my body came alive. There was something about her that triggered something in me. Something about the splattering of freckles across her nose and her washed out grey looking eyes. What kind of fucking colour were they supposed to be? I licked my lips, remembering the way she looked at me as I strode from the dining room, as though she wanted to like me, as though she needed a friend. I wasn't a fucking friend. I was the furthest thing from a friend, especially for her. I scrolled through her photos, letting myself get carried away until I glanced at the time. Fuck. I'd been here for hours and hours looking at her goddamn social media. I leaned forward, started the four-wheel drive and pulled out, making my way back home. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the house was dark. I glanced at the clock as I killed the engine. It was almost 11. Still early enough. Double-glazed windows smothered the sounds from outside. They wouldn't even hear me. Movement came from above as I climbed out and closed the door. I lifted my gaze to the shadow in the window on the 3rd floor. In the same room that had once housed my mother and her medical equipment, and now her. I stilled, staring at her as she watched me. She had to see me, and had to know I saw her too. Maybe she didn't care. Maybe little Ryth Castlemaine wasn't a mouse at all. The idea of that sent a shudder through me. My pulse raced quickly. I swallowed hard and turned away, watching from the corner of my eye as the blinds fell back into place. My keys slid into the lock and twisted. Slipping into the house without a sound, silence greeted me. Low creaks of the house, all that reached me as I closed the door behind me and locked it, activated the alarm system and slid the chain into place. My steps were soundless as I climbed the stairs all the way to the 3rd floor, then stopped in the hallway outside her room. I wanted to go in there, wanted to see her curled up in bed, wanted to see those eyes once more until a sound drifted up through the darkness. A moan. Low, demanding, and coming from the 2nd floor. I glanced over my shoulder as the sound came again, only this time the moan was feminine, and it was coming from my dad's bedroom. And that is it for chapter 4. So, pretty intense little chapter. I guess we'll see what Ryth's up to in the next one. But yeah, hopefully we start seeing a little bit more of Tobias and a little bit more of Ryth, and let's see what's going on next chapter with those moans coming from the dad's bedroom. Until next time, smutty reading. Love, love.